Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder, and this is BRN AM for Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. And here are our top stories. The rise of the Video Game Workers Union, and we'll take a closer look at the smart bathroom. Yep, you heard it right. Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Dan Klein. He's lead advisor and executive producer for 7 Investing. Dan, great to see you. Thanks for joining us on the program this morning.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
So let's talk about gaming, Dan, because word is that some gamers are coming together to form a gaming union. So number one, I wanted to get your thoughts on that, but maybe before that, does this signify that gaming is just like at the top of the world because it has to have a gaming union?
So it's not just gaming. You sent me an article about this, and what was really described is this sort of perpetual startup culture that's sort of pervasive in technology. And I've worked in this world where it's like a badge of honor that you work from like 7 a.m. until 9 at night, and you have no life, and your social life is that there's like, free snacks at 6 o'clock. Like that's very much the gaming culture. And what companies haven't figured out, you saw some of this in this article, is that endlessly turning over relatively low-level employees is expensive. And sort of being on an endless sprint doesn't make a lot of sense. It's why I'm very critical of this sort of Amazon, it's always day one strategy. Like that's a great vision for how you run your thinking. It's not a great run for how you run your employees. Because it's one thing, Jeff, if you and I say, hey, let's pretend we're working on a project together, and that project is close to deadline, and as an anomaly, we have to spend all night in the office for 2 or 3 days and just get everything done. That's fun. That's romantic. When that's your lifestyle, when that's what you're doing every week, when your office says things like, we're going to have a dry cleaning service that comes into the office and picks up your dry cleaning, that's generally not a service. That's generally saying, don't take 5 minutes from your day to go drop off your dry cleaning. Like I worked in that 90s startup culture. And I can honestly say in recent years, I've turned down jobs because companies have that mentality. It's not sane. It's not healthy. And, if it takes a union to force normal hours and normal work conditions, that's too bad because unions lose flexibility. I managed a factory that had a union, and it was very frustrating. And I was a very good boss, but I didn't have an easy ability to negotiate with my guys and say, okay, we got a really big order. Here's what I can give you if we fill this big order by working extra hours. The rules sometimes made that very hard. I think this is not going to be great for the gaming industry, but it's going to be pretty good for workers in the gaming industry.
Dan, how big is it? I mean, how big is this industry? When we talk about gaming, I'm thinking, that I've been playing video games for a long time. I've been doing a lot of gaming. But how big is it? Are there a lot of professional gamers out there?
So we're really talking about people who are designing and building the games, not so much the professional people who are playing the game. And yeah, it's bigger than the movie industry, or let's call it the pre-pandemic movie industry. A big blockbuster game can not only be $1 billion franchise, it can be $1 billion franchise that produces for years, that, forgetting sequels, just has like sort of an endless run of in-game purchases and new people coming into it and new expansion packs. And so this is massive business. And here's the challenge. When we make a movie, generally all the people working on the movie are in the same place. All the editors and sound production, games are globally distributed. So one of the problems with ours is you might be working in LA, I might be working in New York. Well, that's 4 hours difference. There's an overlap. It's not so bad. But I've worked with teams when I was at Microsoft where I was in New York, our bosses were in Seattle, and a lot of our team was in India. Well, when do you have a meeting? Like, it's really, really tricky. I worked on Molly Fu Hong Kong for a while, and all my meetings were at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Like, that is really difficult. And when you're talking coding and developing, when everything sort of interplays with each other, just the nature of it forces weird and difficult hours. So when you have a company that's trying to build a Wild West culture of like, we're a family, we do everything and we work hard, and it's like, that's great, but you're not a family when it comes time for layoffs. You're not a family when it comes time for profits. So I'm a big fan of, look, I'm essentially a partner where I work now. So if we all have to put in extra hours, there's absolutely incentive for each of us to do that. In cases where it's like, well, the company benefits, and if things take a slight downturn, we're going to lay people off. I'm not a big fan of that culture.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's hard to have a family. It's hard to do certain, have a home and have, if you're not getting that steady income, Dan. But, I mean, people do kind of, maybe people thrive on that mentality, or maybe they need to kind of check themselves and question themselves. Maybe they don't want to work for an organization that has that mentality. I mean, are there any gaming companies that produce great games that maybe don't have that culture, that mentality? I mean, I understand that this is a huge industry. It's bigger than the movie industry, but I mean, it's got to be a good place. You got to have a company that's a good place to work.
Yeah, I'm sure there are, but that being said, it's a young person's industry. It's a male dominated industry. It's a white male dominated industry. And so are startups. Look, when I lived that lifestyle, I didn't have a kid. I was either not quite married or just married. And you don't have the level of responsibility. And again, if you're bootstrapping something and you're at like a 4-person game studio that are, a little bit of money and a dream, that's one thing. But when you're working for giant companies that employ tens of thousands of people, look, I felt this way at Microsoft too. If you're an employee working at Microsoft, there is an enormous amount of pressure to work long hours. And Microsoft is largely considered a much better place to work than, say, Amazon. So this is very typical of tech, where your job takes over. And look, my personality, maybe your personality, Jeff, lends itself to this. At points where I've had, when the pandemic started, essentially, I just worked 12-hour days because the work was there. It needed to be done. It was really when I stopped doing that I realized, oh, wow, that's not healthy. It's not normal. Like it long run isn't sustainable. So I think as bosses, forgetting whether you have a union, you don't have a union, whether you're a tech company, whatever you are, you need to think about the welfare of your workers. And yeah, it's okay to sprint when there's a deadline or to go above and beyond when there's, something special to deal with. But in general, you need to say like, hey, it's Friday, it's 2:00. I think we did enough work this week. Why doesn't everybody go home? Like, and you need to manage that way. You need to take people's welfare into account, especially if you're going to hold them accountable when those special things do happen.
Dan, do you think the startup culture, this is just more of a philosophical question, do you think the startup culture, given what we've been through the pandemic, people working remotely, the impetus is maybe there to work 12 plus hours a day because you got nothing else to do. But do you think that startup culture, though it can reward some, really, outside of this union conversation, this collective bargaining conversation, that it really starts to reform itself and, in order to attract workers, you're going to want to be able to provide people with remote access, do some of the things that we've talked about on the program before?
So in most cases, companies mature. You work at a startup, it's a sprint for a while, you achieve a level of success, and then if you want to hold on to employees, it has to level off. People get married, people have kids, people get into situations. One of the great things about remote work is if you manage it correctly, it allows for that balance, meaning you can say, okay, I don't have to commute anymore. So if you live in New York, that's an hour plus a day. So maybe you start your day at 8 a.m. and you work till 5 and you've put in a really long day, but you still have a reasonable amount of time at home where you're not doing anything. Not having to commute can be a big advantage, but it also can be a disadvantage. I mean, Jeff, I work as part of a small team. There is no point during the day where we're not all communicating with each other. But a lot of that communication is fun and personal. In fact, I'd say 90% of it might be stock market related, but it isn't like actionable. It's more just like, here's a discussion. Do you want to be a part of it? Do you not want to be a part of it? And I think it's really important to just sort of decide like, okay, it'd be cool to be talking about some weird biotech thing with everybody else right now. But you know what? I'm making dinner. I'm going to eat with my wife and child. And maybe after dinner, I'll log on for half an hour and chat a bit. And then I'll turn it off. And that comes from top down. Bosses have to set that culture. Look, I've worked places where I had West Coast bosses where my day didn't end until their day ended. So mentally, I was on until 9, 10 o'clock at night. Even if I wasn't actually working, I was totally responsible to be available. And that can be really tricky, but I can't change that. Only the boss can change that. So, if you're running an organization, if you manage people, you really need to think, okay, it's great if we ask for something special and everyone gets it done, but where's the opposite? Where do we give back and say, hey, time's a little slow, take some time to yourself, or hey, this is just a regular week, so let's all work from 9 to 5 and then be done with it.
Yeah. Well, Dan, I want to go to a quick break. And by the way, incidentally, I did see where a young gamer had to retire because he or she had a thumb injury. So that just got me thinking, I felt like I was reading about the NFL or sports player. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the bathroom technology market. We've talked about this before. We're going to talk more with Dan, so stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Hi folks, Joe Namath here, and if you're on Medicare, this is important. You're now entitled to eliminate copays and get dental care, dentures, eyeglasses, prescription coverage, in-home aids, unlimited transportation, and home-delivered meals, all at no additional cost. Plus, your zip code may have coverage with the Give Back benefit that adds money back to your Social Security check every month. Look, with the uncertainty of the virus and vaccines, you need to get everything you're entitled to. Here's the bottom line. Call to get significant benefits at no additional cost and see if your zip code has coverage with the Give Back benefit. Millions of people have trusted the Medicare Coverage Helpline. You can too. Call now. It's free.
Call 1-800-924-3920. That's 1-800-924-3920.
Welcome back. We're talking to Dan Klein of 7 Investing. Dan, thanks for staying with us this morning.
So, Jeff, I'm not sure I like being like your Adam Schefter of bathroom talk. Like, I don't want to be the Woj bomb of bathroom technology here. So let's make it clear. This is just something where we've happened to cover a few times. It's not an area of particular interest or expertise for either of us. I'm being a little silly here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're one of our tech gurus, and we like to have a little fun on the network. And I thought this would be a perfect segue. But in all seriousness, Dan, we talked about CES, and they had a smart toilet or smart toilets, but that got me thinking, and I did a little bit more research and saw that the smart bathroom technology is actually a growing market. So what can you tell us here?
So I was surprised by this because we talked about the smart toilet, which is really a niche item. That is someone who's really into their health or has a serious health problem that they're monitoring, that wants a toilet to tell them exactly, how to change their diet or what minerals they're missing. But smart bathroom tech is also things like infrared faucets. And I never really thought about, I picture the infrared faucet is me at a public bathroom endlessly waving my hands trying to get the thing to turn on, and then the next guy walks up and it happens automatically. But in your own bathroom at home, that's actually a conservation tool. So only using water when you're actually using water is good for the environment. It's good for your water bill in places where you pay for water. There's other things like cleaning. Like think of a bathroom that, every night with UV lights cleans and kills all the mold, kills whatever's going on. And all of the different technology ways, your bathroom is pretty gross. It's a bathroom. Like, we probably don't clean our bathroom as much as we should. So the ability to automate some of that. And look, this is a fledgling industry. I think the story we read said $1 billion by 2026. But it is part of the very slowly emerging smart home trend. And I say this because I've written about smart homes since the 90s, since the early 90s. I've been writing about smart homes, and they're still not really here. You have your occasional rich guy who has everything, but most of us have one light bulb connected to a phone, or I have my thermostat connected to my phone and it doesn't work that well, and I've never figured it out. My air conditioning seems to be always on no matter what temperature I set it at. But I do think, there are some smart bathroom things. Look, a self-cleaning toilet's a really good idea. A sanitizing, mist might not make sense at home, but it might definitely make sense in public bathrooms. So there's a lot to watch here, but it's still a very, very small area.
And Dan, maybe it's not, as you're suggesting, it's not the home market. Maybe it's college facilities, gym facilities, high school facilities where kids are using the bathroom. I mean, this technology, again, going back to our conversation about the niche smart toilet, this doesn't necessarily maybe apply to everyone in the home because it's maybe cost prohibitive, but this is something that you could use in, as you said, public facilities, and would eliminate germs, but also conserve water, conserve paper towels if you choose to use paper towels, conserve energy if you're using it as those blow dry for your hands, etc.
Yeah, this definitely makes sense in high traffic bathrooms. Think of a place like Disney World, where essentially as soon as a bathroom is cleaned, it has to be cleaned again. And I'll give Disney credit. They have very clean bathrooms, and even they can't avoid that occasionally you walk in and then you walk right back out because it's not as clean as it should be, to put it nicely. That can be automated. And we've certainly seen with the focus that the pandemic has caused, things like UV lights that can kill bacteria are going to be more common. And there already are, call them toilet stalls, where the second you leave, essentially the whole room flushes, and cleans and dries, and then the next person goes in and uses it. I think you're going to see that technology, something like the American Express lounge in Las Vegas, where if I'm flying on Southwest, I use that lounge, and they have showers. Those showers are, I'm sure, cleaned once or twice a day. But imagine if you could know it was just digitally cleaned and sanitized. That would be a selling point. Restrooms at rest stops are never clean. So if you could automate that, that would be a big thing. Imagine the expense at hotels if you could automate some of the cleaning of rooms and bathrooms. So there's going to be big business here, but it is more expensive than human labor to install. So I don't think we're quite at the inflection point yet.
And Dan, I mean, here we are in the midst of this, in the throes of this pandemic. I mean, this is really a way. Yeah, I mean, you were talking about some of how bad some of these bathrooms could be, or other parts of the bathroom can be. That can lead to disease. That can lead to virus. That can lead to spreading things to people that we probably shouldn't even mention on the show. That's really an opportunity to tamp down some of that. There's a healthcare part of this as well.
I think we're going to see a lot more focus on prevention of spreading diseases. And look, there are people you wouldn't sit next to on a bus that you're sharing a bathroom with. And that, added cleanliness is going to be a good thing. I saw the other day, I was in a public restroom that had the automated toilet seat cover. When you flushed, the plastic rolled, to the new one. That's a really low tech way of doing it. But I do think that's going to expand. And it's really about making it as efficient as possible, because that becomes a selling point. Are you going to stop at the rest stop? Okay, you stop at the one that has the pretzel place you like. But would you be more likely to stop at the one that has the robot cleaned bathrooms that it's going to be sparklingly clean, and there's not a chance you come out of it with, I don't know, malaria or whatever other terrible communicable disease. I picked a silly one because you obviously don't get malaria in the U.S. All that often. But I think this is going to be a growing trend, but it will have to get much cheaper for it to be common.
Yeah, and I wonder if, just thinking it through down the line, if, say a company enacts this cleaning technology in their bathrooms, could they get a reduced rate on their health insurance, as an example? Because here they are, I'm just spitballing here, but all these could be great incentives to help improve our health, which arguably has not been great, not even before the coronavirus pandemic, but we need to do a better job of taking care of ourselves. Dan, always a pleasure chatting with you. Great stories, and I promise next week, no bathroom or toilet stories. Have a great rest of the week.
I'll see you soon, Jeff.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, then drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, all in one place, check out today's edition of The Morning Pulse. So until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited, and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.